all of us, all roads will be leading to Kololo, where we shall be praying for the Independence Night, Kololo on 29th. It was once years, months, but now we are counting days, 29th. In the next 2 or something days that are coming weeks, we shall be going to Kololo to pray for our Lord Jesus Christ. Today again, I will also remind you that another service, special service for the business community, we shall be again at Canaan land, where we shall be praying for you. Come. I'm told that all the seats have already been taken, but we hope as we move, wherever you are, in the taxis, in your personal vehicles, or you are walking, please, we pray for you that you reach safely at Canaan land for the business community and other people, where they will be dedicating their business so that they are blessed. Because you cannot do without anything. If you cannot do business without God. So if today you come, pray to the Lord, Pastor Aloysius Wijingo, you will be leading us today to make sure that that day happens. And tomorrow, don't forget to come to church for the usual service. 42 days of fasting is still going on. So far today, we are making about 20 days of fasting. So please be with our Lord. So come back to the studio. The program is The Dialogue, which happens every Saturday, 10 to 12 noon. And we shall be discussing purely politics, social, and economic. I have very experienced people on the panel today. But before we go to introduce our colleagues in the studios, I would like to take you through what has happened during the week. This week has been a week of happiness, a week of sadness, a week of many things that happened today, but we bring you some highlights of some things that happened during the week. And one of them is we congratulate the Omukam of Toro, Oyo Nyimba Kabamba Iguru, the King of Busoga, Isebantu. We congratulate you for having celebrated different functions. 28th for Toro and 9 years for Busoga. And this is one of the kingdoms in Uganda that is led by the youthful kings who have entered in the books of history. And we congratulate for having done that. And many things has happened within Uganda, parliament, the judiciary, the religious circle, and many others. But we might not highlight many, but of course we shall be talking one by one as we go ahead to discuss the issues. When we go to Africa, we again see a lot of things happening in Africa, and one of the countries that has been one of the African countries that was developing at a very high speed, that is Libya, is being affected by floods. Floods in Uganda, we do have them, but the one which happens in Libya, this one is a question to discuss. Another catastrophe that happened in Africa is in Morocco. Morocco, where an earthquake which has never been registered to say, at my age, I've never seen such an earthquake of that nature. Many people are dying. Many people are still dying. So we commiserate with the families that have lost their lives in Morocco and Libya, and in other African countries, South Sudan and many countries. We've seen coups happening in Africa, but we pray the Lord that will help us to make sure that these things come to the order. A lot of prayer is needed for the people of Africa and the entire world to see that there is peace in those countries. Let's come back to the studios, my brothers and sisters. You are tuned to The Dialogue, which happens every Saturday, 10 to 12 noon, and your host today is Moses Kajangu. On my right, as usual, I have my biggest friend, a person whom I have worked in many areas, in research, and I can't say, African Leadership Institute, the body that assesses the performance of members of parliament. Of recent, I have seen some members of parliament who have never said anything on the floor of parliament. I don't know, you'll guide us, Doctor, when I give you a microphone, to tell us the performance of the 11th Parliament. But the floor is yours, Doctor. Doctor, with me is a public policy analysis.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, our host, Mr. Kajangu. Good morning, our esteemed viewers. We cannot take it for granted that you spend 2 hours every Saturday watching us. It is really a privilege to have you. And also greetings to my co-panelist, Dr. Rugarama, the esteemed Pan-Africanist.
Thank you.
One
Thank
who
you.
we really know is holding the flag in Uganda here. Maybe as a disclaimer, what was published by the Vision Group was not done by the Africa Leadership Institute, but in previous work we used to collaborate with the Vision Group to ensure that the knowledge is passed on for sustainability, because we are depending on foreign-based donors. Now, in the absence of, say, DGF, which was giving money, the New Vision has somehow picked something, components of what we are producing. So it's not for the AFRI, but what they are doing, we commend them, because citizens need to know what is going to happen in between the election cycles. People promise bridges, promise roads, promise, and yet the major work is in Parliament. So if you are not there, then your constituency is absent. Basically, that is what I can say about that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chairman Pan-African Movement. Doctor, I have very many doctors, but today, if you fall sick, don't send me a message that you want a Panado. That is a disclaimer. These are doctors that have qualified in different areas. So, Chairman Pan-African, I must thank you for having brought here a very distinguished Zimbabwean.
Yes, is an African.
Now the floor is yours. You can introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Comrade Kajangu. Salutations to Comrade Dr. Wanzara and the viewers. We, like Dr. Wanzara said, we do not take anybody for granted. Putting aside your 2 full hours on a beautiful Saturday every week to listen to us, and we do not in any way, by any chance, take ourselves to be the most knowledgeable, because knowledge, we can't claim absolute custodianship of knowledge. We only share our opinions, and we believe that we are contributing to the body of knowledge by doing so. Comrade Kajangu, the week to me, I wish to point out a few things. One, on the Ugandan scene, we have had and since we're going to talk about it, I will not go into depth. We have had Uganda police, come to put a stop to the consultation.
I think that one we shall be discussing as one of our top keys.
Yes, so that's why I was like just highlighting. And of course, it has increased a lot of talking points in the social media. Now that we are going to talk about it, there is no need of inquiring a lot into it at this material time. On the African continent, largely, there are continued interests by the foreign powers, especially in Gabon, in all the areas where the coups have taken place, Niger, and of course, we do not forget that even the West African, so-called French West Africa, where the coups had earlier on taken place, the hitherto superpowers that were taking away the raw materials have not given up. They have been sending in emissaries, and the engagements have reached a crescendo. But what is of great interest is that, unlike Gabon, majority of the rest of the other French West Africa, they are stuck to their area commands, that they are not interested in having any negotiations at all. We also, you talked about it, to witness the unfortunate occurrence of the floods, these so-called natural calamities in Morocco and Libya. Of course, I will never forgive the orchestrators of the destroyed now, or what I will call a destroyed country, called Libya, and we know all of them. And finally, maybe also to look at largely the war in Ukraine, and people may think because it is not so much playing on the local TVs, you have to tune the CNN and the BBC, that probably it has gone down. It hasn't, and but of course you can see that what the NATO calculated is completely very wrong, and the situation, because the minister, the defense minister in Ukraine actually was fired, and that tells you where the war is headed. And there have been a lot of regroupings, formations. Then Russia also cut off the supply chains of the grain of the Ukrainians to the rest of the world. That is an income minus. So the very final refinery for me really was the G20, if you remember, where they admitted South Africa. Now some people, and you will forgive my language, but we have some of our people here and away who probably don't want to use their mental faculties critically. They may celebrate that at least one of us has been appointed to be a member of the G20. Now, when you look at South Africa, when they begin taking away your big boys from the continent and not admitting save the entire Africa, because the European Union is a member of the G20. Why can't we have African Union as a member of the G20? Of course, the debate can even be a little bit higher and saying, do we even need to be members of the G20 at individual levels? Why can't we have consolidated and galvanized efforts organically here? But that notwithstanding, you look at what is happening now in Havana, we have the G77. Now the G77, largely speaking, for the benefit of those who may not know, could be like it is akin to say the NRM, non-aligned movement. So I want to conclude it that way, because when you allow me, I will go on and on and on. But the
I know, Doctor, you are a Pan-African and at the international level. But that one, I think we are going to organize that topic of that nature.
I would appreciate
where we
that
shall,
one
we
very
shall
much.
discuss it. But to my own understanding is that when you have many people in a circle, at times we tend not to do something very productive. I think you have seen at the East African level, the countries are increasing, but we don't see something happening at the East African level. But we see the G8, there is the G7 now. Yes. There is something which is happening. Now, let's see this coming movement. I'm told Uganda is also soon joining the BRIC. But
the BRICS.
We shall see how it will help the people of Africa and the entire world.
Maybe just to say make a statement on the BRICS. You see, the problem is that people think that we are too much excited about the BRICS. No, but we are saying if we can get an alternative of the World Bank, and there are a few elements which are wrong in the World Bank and which can be corrected in the BRICS, so much the better. But the best form of organizing ourselves economically would be the organic African continent organization, for us to be able to dictate the economic development at our own tempo.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. As I told you in the studio, I have a full house, and I have the quorum now. I'm ready to do anything that nobody will be able to challenge me on what we shall be deciding in this house today. But let me welcome my long-time friend. I always call him my long-time friend, Mr. Richard Baguma, whom I have worked in the area of in my profession in journalism, and he's a mentor and he's an advisor in many things. So we have done many projects together. Mr. Baguma, the floor is yours. Tell us, greet our viewers, and tell us exactly what was your catch for the week.
As always, it's a pleasure to be here. we also know that we are here by the grace of God, the Almighty, and also the very gracious. So we thank God for our being here. Thanks, of course, to the management for always giving us the platform.
Exactly.
It's nice to see my colleagues. I was looking at them, of course, online. When I was away, I would follow the arguments. It's very interesting sometimes when you are watching from the other side. And of course, our viewers, you know, I get surprised sometimes about the number of viewers we have online, the online ones, because, you know, you meet people out of this country and they tell you that they see you. And you're thinking, okay, this is very interesting. Because sometimes when you are seated here, you don't realize the power that we have. So it's nice to be here. For the week, children started school. For many years, I have not been dropping children or picking children from school. Now I have started again. So that is a bit surprising for me. The behavior of parents while dropping and picking children. I think the indiscipline we have while parking and is interesting. And we are showing, and we are doing this when our children are there. So the practical teaching we are giving, I am not sure. The level of indiscipline for me is one of the things that struck me during the week. There are the normal things that are going on. For me, I call them normal, except for the disasters around the continent. You see, part of the things I was saying, that the disasters were happening all the time, but not yet on the continent at this scale of losing 20,000 people. Now here we are. And of course, we know even our country is very prone. We are prone, but we are also very vulnerable. I'm not sure about our state of readiness. The other thing for me is the deterioration again, the spike in the talk about sectarianism. And you see, sectarianism for me is multifaceted. There is familism. So you find people are choosing a certain family, just or you do things because you are giving advantage to your family. This is your family. There is clanism. You find, you know, advantage is just going to a clan. There is tribalism. You know, you have, then now it expands to the tribe. You have geographical location. The Westerners, the people from the Southwest first. No, from Ankole first. Then the Southwest, then the whole West. You know, so you have those. Then marginalization of a certain, that we are a regional grouping. Very sectarian issues that have been coming up. But also, most importantly for me, is that even when Comrade Rugarama comes and says something, the one who is receiving it already has sectarian lenses on them. So the interpretation is in that way. And so you don't hear what the other one is saying. No, you already have your lenses and you are interpreting it in that way. Now, we also have seen that the accusations of sectarianism is on denominationalism. That you see it is only the Barokore who are being advantaged, or it is the Muslims who are being picked on. So you have all isms of sectarian nature.
Last week we had Odaka here crying.
Muslims.
So this for me, the spike.
Yes.
Again, in this sectarian rhetoric, is again something that caught my attention during the week.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Baguma Richard, communication specialist. You are still tuned to the Dialogue Salt TV live here in the studios. Let's go straight to our topic today. Many things happened, as I explained to you, and one of them was a by-election in Hoima. I wouldn't say that it was a peaceful election, but I have analysts inside the studios here, and we are going to discuss thoroughly what happened in Hoima. By-elections following the death of the late Kadir Kirungi, who died in an accident, and we saw Electoral Commission, the National Electoral Commission, organizing a by-election in that area. We have not seen big wings in that area, like as usual. I did not see the president of Uganda campaigning for his party. Neither did I see other presidential candidates or the president of different political parties camping in Hoima. And the urban area in Hoima has been dominated with many opposition parties, especially Forum for Democratic Change, that is FDC, which is also fighting for power. Who is who, and who is organizing a delegates conference and who is not organizing. Is it Katonga? Is it Najanankumbi? All those things we shall be looking at it. National Unity Platform, we have seen with very big rallies in parts of the country. But what does the rallies mean for a ballot box back home in Hoima? So we shall be giving you exactly how these people performed. First of all, gentlemen, before we start discussing, I want to take you through about the result. Of course, NRM was declared a winner, and we shall, when we are going to debate, we shall also talk about succession, the succession. We are seeing when somebody dies or when somebody retires, either a son, a wife, a cousin is replacing that very seat. So there is that culture which is also growing in Uganda, not only in Uganda but in other countries, because we have seen it in many African countries. One of the candidates for NRM is Mugisha Uthman Mubaraka, who garnered 18,353 votes. Then followed by the closest, almost is an independent, Mr. Baguma and the colleagues, doctors, 12,000 plus votes. Then we see number 3 is the 3,972 for NUP. FDC, which has, NUP is the 3,972 votes. And FDC, which has been one of the strongest in Hoima, in the oil area, is getting only 271. Could it be one of the reasons why these people are fighting?
271.
271 votes for their candidate.
Not thousand.
Not votes. Thousand. Not even it is three digit. It is 271.
Jesus.
So you can see where we are heading. I will start with the doctor. I think you analyzed the issues. You saw what happened.
Two doctors.
I'll call him Dr. 1, then Dr. 2.
Ah, yeah. You have a heavy read in the pan of doctors.
So we are aspiring to be doctors, not medical doctors, but we shall be explaining to you where you passed through. We are soon passing there too. But Dr. Wanzala, you have seen what happened in Hoima. We have seen a very peaceful election in Hoima. We have seen very poor turn-up. By percentage, it was 36%. What could have been the problem in that area? Is it because that people now are tired? Because the national roadmap has already been released, and this was just like what we would call in a wedding or in preparation for any function, the kasiki. I would call this one the kasiki. Why is it that the turn-up was poor, given the weather, which was another factor?
Thank you very much, Apple. If I start with the issue of turn-up, the turn-up is usually high when people attach a lot of importance to that election. And given the period between now and 2016, I think a lot of electioneering has been going on. Like you are saying, people are a bit fatigued. But also, one of the reasons for a drop in the voter turn-up at times is the environment, the electoral environment. When it is very hostile, people are likely to stay home, or when there is a lot of influence, external influence, in form of money, state machinery, people are likely to stay home because they are not sure of what will be the effect of their vote. But when I watched Hoima, contrary to say Bukedia and the by-election in Soroti, this was largely peaceful. And I am not very much shocked with the result of NRM winning that election, because traditionally Bunyoro has been NRM base, except some boiling points in the urban areas, yes. Like we saw Nyakato winning the the Hoima
And
city.
we had a mayor by then.
City
a very
woman
strong
MP.
mayor.
I also know that somewhere in Masindi, actually the whole of Hoima has the whole of Bunyoro has only 2 opposition MPs, Jakato and Masindi municipality, the former mayor. Therefore, in circumstances where this party is well grounded, the NRM is well grounded, because if even in the independent candidate who came number 2 is actually an NRM member, is the vice chairperson of NRM who defied and said to stand as an independent. So it means that the NRM people actually took almost all the votes. Maybe what is significant for me is the 3,700 votes of the NUP. Ideally, historically, this could have gone to FDC, like you are saying, but the fights within FDC have not spared the FDC, especially in Western Uganda. If you see most opposition MPs, FDC MPs from the West, even other politicians who are not MPs, have decided to ally with Katonga faction. So it definitely has an effect on the strength of the party on the ground. It's not long ago when I saw MP Nyakata and others throwing punches in Hoima because they were saying which FDC delegates are these being sworn in, when for them they claim they boycotted what? Election. So they stormed the venue and there was a big fight. I saw it on NTV, meaning that the party is fractured, it is divided, and therefore the outcome represents what is on the ground. And the 3,700 indicates that NUP is trying to gain from the fight by the FDC. Otherwise, now coming to the issue of inheritance of political positions, I look at people in Uganda.
Yes.
This is intentional. People are trying to set the pace so that if a mother inherits, a child inherits, now when it comes to the top position in the country, how will you begin saying that so and so should not replace the father when others are doing it in the LOC, in the local governments, in parliament and so forth? So for me, I think it is setting a ground for if the MK comes, then they say, but others have been inheriting. Yes.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Dr. Rugarama, you have seen what has transpired in Hoima. We have seen the Electoral Commission chairman announcing and saying that this was one of the peaceful elections that has been held in that area. From your observation, what is your take as far as these elections is concerned, and where are we heading as far as 2026 is concerned?
I have had an opportunity to look at the report of one of the elections analysts here in the country. This is Kaheo.
Crispy Kaheo.
Yes.
Is the commissioner now, Human Rights Commission.
Human Rights. And I think he came out well in pointing out what actually took place in Hoima. And I think that's where he comes from at the same time. And I have consistently over time remember that elections management is one, my area of study at advanced levels. At the same time, I worked with the Electoral Commission for well over 11 years. So I'm always very keen when we are having these elections. But I have stated here before that the problem we have in Uganda, and I think maybe it is in the rest of Africa, simply because the nature of democracy is not ours, it is foreign, is that we begin electioneering process immediately after we have been sworn in.
Yes.
So in other words, we almost have no time to concentrate and work for the people. That is those who go into elections. Political and, of course, political nature. What happened in Hoima is not so much different from what has been happening in majority of the by-elections. The voter turn-up is, in majority of the cases, well below 45%. of the registered voters.
Yeah, to compare,
Sometimes,
Mr. Doctor, to compare 100 plus registered voters and the turn-up of
Yes.
not more than 40,000.
And I
It's
think-
really something to
and I
debate
think
about.
that is unfortunate. Even when we talk about fatigue, we should also examine what causes this fatigue. You know, people shying away from the voting, participating in elections, tells a story, and that story is not good for the country. Because even if you do not participate, the outcomes of an election will certainly affect you. Now, what we are experiencing with low turn-up, it is very fortunate that what we experienced in Hoima just a day, I mean the previous, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday?
Thursday.
Was a relief in the sense that what we had in Bukedia, what we had in Soroti was terrible. I was here with, I think, Odak. Was it Odak? Odaka Osman. The what is the political party again?
Need national economic
And, that's one of our brother Kabulata. And I reminded him, he was like, if nothing happens, this party of ours has got the best candidate and they are going to win. I was here, I politely whispered to him, I said, man, you wake up from the dream. You are not going to win this by-election. I said, even if NRM withdraws now, and we leave you with the rest of the candidates, you are not winning. Now, I am not a Jewish prophet, but what I told him has come to pass. Maybe, finally, on this by-election. Remember, it came at the heels when NUP, I think, this rhetoric that we are going to talk about, the sectarian talk and this tribal thing, which in my opinion is extremely very unfortunate, had already been heard by majority of the people. And I think the NUP president, principal, they call him, had already visited that place. And I want to state in conclusion that certain things must not be allowed to happen. Even when I listened to my senior brother, and I respect him with all due respect, Comrade OO, saying that what should happen is that he would counter the falsehoods paraded by NUP. There is where you can counter. You know, when somebody comes and says on a policy, tells a lie on a policy matter, and then you come and say, no, this is not true. You come with facts. But when somebody is commencing a conversation on sectarian and tribal undertone to influence just an election or to want to come to a political seat, that must be stopped immediately. And I think that this election, the outcome of this by-election in Hoima, is a very strong statement to the effect that this kind of talk and politicking is not the kind of politics that we desire in the present circumstances of our country.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Now we can turn to my brother, Mr. Baguma. Mr. Baguma, I think you have observed what has happened in Hoima. And there is that vocabulary which we use, succession, some succession. I think as you analyze what you saw and what you heard from Hoima, there is that issue of succession. Where are we leading, Mr. Baguma? Where we see somebody dies and it's like a monarch, somebody has to be replaced from a family or a close relative.
I think I am like many of the residents, the voters of Hoima. I didn't pay too much attention to the election in Hoima.
It was a very quiet election.
Yeah, because the outcome was already foreseeable. So I think that was one of the things, that there was not so much expectation of a contestation that is different. So I think that takes away the thunder from that by-election. It was kind of, the result was kind of, the contestation was between two people from the same political side. So it was, even if this one comes with the other one, it will be the same group. So I think that took away a lot of the contestation. So the contestation was localized, very localized. By the way, people tend to say that it was very acrimonious. It was very acrimonious. There has to be a lot of bringing people together, particularly for the NRM side. Yeah, because they were bitter divisions among them.
Yes.
And so when you are strategizing for 2026, you must be mindful of this. Otherwise, you can sway. One group can, out of protest, be swayed to the one who is opposite to you. So I think that is the first thing. The second thing is, I think what you call succession. I think there has been a very clever packaging of candidates basing on emotion. Yes, because it is still in the emotive time, usually, of the one who has gone, who was the people's representative, the popular one. The side of the person who has died have taken advantage of this emotional situation prevailing to bring a replacement. The only thing that brings attention to that, by the way, if our president did not have his son saying he wants to succeed him, that thing wouldn't be it wouldn't be having as much debate as it is having now. It has a lot of, because it is always connected to the first son wanting to succeed his father. But otherwise, an election in Hoima, which was very localized, where almost 70% of the people didn't even participate, 70% of the voters didn't even participate, we wouldn't have been thinking about succession. I'm not sure, I'm even sure if you go to many people and ask them, how is the current MP related to the past one? I don't think many people would even know how that they were even related at all. So I think we have also to see this context, that the things that are happening at the top tend to influence our interpretation of what is going on downwards. The other thing is that you could see that there was really not much contention in that election. That even the principals in all the places didn't even deem it very necessary
to
even go there.
Proud.
Yeah. So it really tells you, even them, how they gauged this thing. I'm told of a story that one of the groups put a budget to their principal. And the principal said, but you are all there. Why are you asking for money? You are all there, you have some money, go and deal with this problem. This is not a big problem. So the familism, I told you sectarianism has some also, it starts with the familism. So the familism that is emerging in our elections. You see, I keep saying this, Bwana Kajang, that for me, as long as the person qualifies, as long as the person comes in a free and fair manner, they are legally allowed by all the laws and constitutions. We should not discriminate people because of their family. Me and you, Kajangu, we don't choose the families we come from. Yeah, exactly. I did not choose my father or my mother. The guy, they just, you know, so why are you loading it over me? That I am son of the late thinker Simere and the wife Betty, and therefore me, I should not get this or that. So my argument is, unless the sectarianism, the familism, is giving you undue, unfair, illegal advantage, I have no problem with somebody coming up and presenting themselves.
Okay, thank you very much. You're still tuned to the dialogue, which runs from 10 up to 12 noon. in the House, still I have Mr. Richard Baguma, and you've heard what he has explained to you people out there. Dr. Rugarama and Dr. Gerard here. Dr. Gerard, let me come to you here. And
maybe a statement, Kajang, before you come
go
to my brother.
The microphone is yours.
You see, when the institutions have been empowered enough, and this is in reference to your question and how my senior brother just answered, that, for instance, you have a party like NRM. You don't have to have the president, who is the chairman of the party, going for a by-election, although it has been a culture that almost in all by-elections you get the chairman of the party going and maybe canvassing for votes. The truth of the matter, even if, by the way, you had a deputy general secretary of a party, if the party is strong enough and the message is very clear, I can assure you that the point still will be delivered. And maybe to conclude on that, the truth of the matter is that in a system where a political party is in charge of the government, you are the one who formed the government, and you have got qualified and well-grounded cadres who are down there and they are delivering services to the wananchi. The message will even be easier to communicate, and they will certainly return you. So this is not a do or die. And that is why in majority of the cases we have had the kind of acrimonious, the altercations boiling to a point of death and very serious injuries simply because somebody must become something out of that by election so that you can have a report to present to the chairman of the party. That must not be.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. I was coming to you, Dr. Gerard. A credible election must have a very good turn-up, and at the same time, the observation team to give a report, because we have had a report from the Electoral Commission, and like what my colleagues were saying, that the Electoral Commission is giving a credit on what happened, that it was a peaceful election. I always tell people that there is no how you can even tell your wife is ugly. You'll always tell this first lady, the most beautiful woman of mine. And no observers. What has happened to these elections as we head to 2026 elections? There was no observers in that area. If you can rule out, or you can do away with Mr. Chris Pecker here, who had that love for observing, because where he was before he joined the government, he used to observe elections when working with the Senate by then. But we are seeing that he went there as the Uganda Human Rights Commission. I don't know whether they were accredited to do that. What happened to the observers in Uganda? I know most of them were being funded by DGF, which left Uganda. Where are we seeing such things to happen? Are we also expecting to get an international observer to come and observe these local elections here? Or our observers are no longer interested also not to be in such an election?
Maybe for the benefit of the viewers, I should say that you cannot be a referee in your own game. That you are a player, and then at the end of the day you are the one who is issuing red cards, yellow cards, and things like that. It's really, it's not a credible game. And if I give the background why we have really weakened in terms of citizens monitoring of elections, of course I don't trust the fact that only foreigners should come and then their report should be the credible one. I totally agree with when our government people say that. But I also, in absence of the foreigners, do we have homegrown mechanisms that can make the election verifiable and therefore making it credible? In 2021, in the civil society, because you remember the European Union had said they were not coming to participate, and then the others. So we internally, seeing that CEDU has also almost collapsed, we decided to come up with what we call Citizen Election Watch 2021, having a homegrown solution to replace CEDU. That we have CBOs, NGOs, media associations together, and then leverage on the little resources that we were raising to ensure that we monitor our local elections. But what happened was very unfortunate. As you recall, there were bank accounts of our secretariat at Uganda Women's Network that were closed, computers taken by security. At the end of the day, we did not have any single local monitors, except a few were accredited to monitor around the Kampala and surrounding areas. Therefore, at the end of the day, the Ugandans did not have a say properly on what they actually saw, because as a monitor, you must produce evidence, and this report must be shared by the Electoral Commission, by government, to improve the future. So today, I think it's something we need to think about, because it is really wrong to deceive ourselves that we are operating in a democracy, but then the building blocks of the democracy are not there. And democracy is universal. We cannot say this is our version, a hybrid. We saw in Zimbabwe, Mugabe used to say he was running a hybrid system, which Mnangagwa has continued with. Seeing the reports last week of SADC, these are Africans, SADC, African Union saying, this one, no. But we go just stamping and say, we have won, we held elections. So at the end of the day, it brings to what Richard and Mr. Rugarama were saying. If voter turn-up keeps dropping, it is an indicative of something. Maybe people are not satisfied with the kind of elections they are having.
Okay, thank you very much. And I can't forget to remind you again that on 29th, all roads will be leading to Kololo for the Independence Night. Dr. Two, that's how we agreed that we shall be calling ourselves in the
Probably Comrade Rugarama.
Comrade Rugarama.
I have no problem with that. Yes.
We have seen what the mammoth crowd. We have seen the MK movement with a very big mammoth crowd. So all areas wherever he goes, you see, you cannot even recognize somebody. We have seen Noop also joining the race, calling for a very big crowd out there. And wherever they have passed, we have seen, yes, we could say hundreds. But what does this one mean, Mr. Rugarama, when we see a very big mammoth crowd and your candidate comes out with less than 4,000 votes?
The truth of the matter is that our levels of civic awareness are extremely low. We are at a point as a country where either it is by omission or commission that, for one, even the subset of civic education, which is called election education, or voter, we call voter education. Voter education in this country is done at a very minimal scale. And even then, the way it is done is like we are probably not prepared, and we wake up all of a sudden, recruit a few companies here and there, and they go and do what they think they have done that they call voter education, and then they come and file reports. In the same way, an informed and empowered civic society would be a much better voting bloc. The reasons as to why we have continuously witnessing declining percentages in the voter turnout is, in my opinion, and my constant analysis of what is happening in this country, like in the majority of the other jurisprudences, because I watched Zimbabwe, I have taken time to watch almost all the countries on the African continent. There is that general liturgical way of approaching elections, which in majority of the cases is symptomatic of the fact that people don't actually see why they should go to the ballot box. And like I said, that one is a very big problem, because when you look at the people who, by way of either lack of proper civic education and declining energies and vigor to go to the ballot box, then you can tell that the comrades that are going to be taking decision, political decision, which will affect all round life cycle of another human being, may not necessarily be the best qualified. So, the mammoth crowds that we have been seeing following our brother, say, Bob Wine, we are not going to shy away from the fact that there are certain elements of life, be it social, economic, or otherwise, that probably this government has not gotten right. There are high levels of unemployment, that is a fact. We see, the NRM is a victim of its own success. That you have put there free primary and secondary education. You have created an atmosphere where you have increased the number of colleges and universities. The rate at which you churn out products who in a majority of the cases are not tailored to your economy, the structure of your economy, that majority of the products from the universities will not easily be absorbed by the labor market. You see? So you end up, therefore, creating a reservoir of the angry people out of your own systems who are going to welcome Bob Wine. Because Bob Wine's message, unfortunately, if we go there, is not giving hope. It is giving, erasing sentiments that you see, the systems in place are designed in such a way that you are not going to benefit from the government which you think is your government. And he's not going to tell them what he is going to do differently, but simply because this is the circumstances in which these guys find themselves, all of us, there is a tendency that will come Bob Wine or whoever other person it is, and then listen to this message of tribal and sectarian talk, and from there you increase your anger, and at the end of the day you will create a very dissatisfied society, probably creating a mass, most likely a mass that if you don't check that kind of mass, who can be a problem to this country. So in other words, by way of summarizing on this, I will tell you that we have seen mammoth crowds before. We saw what was happening, especially when Besigye was nominated from Ruzira, which I told the audience here, to me it was a plus, because there was an advice from our own government, the responsible officers, not to nominate. But he was nominated, and he posted the greatest percentages in the electoral outcome around that time. So I'm saying, therefore, that these mammoth crowds should also be a point of worry to the government. What exactly is the message being sent there? Yes, I agree, finally, that the government should check on the kind of message, if at all you can call it a message, being passed on to such people. And if that means stopping the rallies, they can also go ahead for the better of the country and stop. But at the same time, what exactly is affecting these youth and other disaffected people, and what can we do about it?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Baguma. Thank you very much, Dr. Comrade Rugarama and Dr. Gerard, for your contribution. And as a team here, we congratulate the NRM candidate for having won these elections. And we are waiting for the swearing in. And as usual, Salt Media, everything we shall be bringing it to you on what will be happening. We are going for a short break. Don't go away. You are still tuned to The Dialogue. That is a very short break, and it was very interesting with the laughters and many things inside the studios here with the doctor and the communication specialist, Mr. Richard Baguma. And still, we are still debating the Hoima elections continuation and how prepared are the political parties in Uganda. But now we switch to another topic and very many things that has been happening around town. And like in our previous discussion in the first hour, we discussed about the issue of national unity platform, the mammoth crowd, and many other things that has been happening in Uganda. And you saw what was taking place. We saw the MK movement, mammoth crowd. We saw the birthday for our president, happy birthday to our president, 79 years, at Kololo Independence Grounds. You saw a very big number of people from all over Uganda. They met and celebrated 79 years, the Katonga at Kololo Independence Ground. And this week, we saw police coming up with a directive suspending the national-wide rallies or national-wide consultation for National Unity Platform. And the police issued that statement. And many of you colleagues here who are with me in the studios, you must have read that or you must have heard the directive of police. And as a rebuttal, we saw principal, they call him principal, of the president of National Unity Platform, Mr. Chagulanyi, Honorable Chagulanyi, saying such a directive, they will not yield to it, and of course, they will still go ahead with their organized rallies and consultation all over Uganda. Like Ate said, that we are nearing the 2026 elections, and the roadmap already is with us. And many candidates, political parties, we have seen in Forum for Democratic Change, they are organizing, they are calling for delegates conference. Though court has suspended, we saw an interim order suspending the delegates conference. I think that one was, when we get time, we shall also discuss about it. We have seen Uganda People's Congress, also they had a very big, I would call a mammoth crowd, and I saw Honorable Akena saying that by 2026, the president of Uganda, who is the chairman of NRM, he said that he should be packing his bag back home. So we saw when he had his rally, that's what he said, that any time the President Museveni is no more. With the Democratic Party, I haven't seen much about it, but we shall hear about it. There is another political party, Comrade Rugarama was talking about how they were going to take over Hoima, and I don't know how Hoima, they were going to take over Hoima without a candidate. But all those things we shall be discussing it. So they were saying that Hoima by election they are taking it, but you cannot take an election, my brothers who are sitting in the studio, when you don't have a candidate unless you have a leaning candidate. So all those things we shall be discussing.
The claim was that he was that they saw the prime minister. The prime minister was buying with the candidate.
Exactly.
So I said, but what did you expect? This is not for a communion. This is politics.
Yes. So I was laughing in my own capacity as Moses Kajango seated here, how a candidate, somebody could say, I will win an election when you don't have a candidate to present. And it's like going to fetch water without a jerrycan. That is something really which made my day, or which made us to laugh here after when we were in our break. So, colleagues, you've had a directive from police. I will start with you, Mr. Richard Baguma. A directive from police stopping these consultative meetings for National Unity Platform. The reason they are giving that they are not controlling their crowds, and like how to the sectarian talk and other things we've had, CID calling the principal to go and make a statement about the statement he has made, and very many people have come out to condemn the sectarian talk which he aired when he was still at a rally in Ruero. Then we have seen people dying in those rallies. So I want to start with you. What does this mean in our democracy?
We commented on this, I think, again yesterday or something on another platform. I am not one of those people who are willing to sweep the talk about sectarianism under the carpet. I'm not one of those. I think it's a matter that we must confront. We are three people on this panel who you can say geographically we are sectarian. We are from the same region. So it is 3/4 of here. So when we get invited, because we don't apply to be panelists, no. So when we get invited, what are the considerations? I don't know. So if you took just this panel, then you would probably say this television is sectarian. Yeah. So that's what I was saying at the beginning, that the spike in the rhetoric about sectarianism was for me an interesting but unfortunate occurrence. But that does not mean that sectarianism doesn't actually exist. That, yeah, sometimes the perceptions are stronger than the reality on the ground, but also driven by some reality on the ground. Exactly. And when I was on that panel, I was saying, let's just take government parastatal. Because you see, why I say this, a lot of sectarian hostility is directed to me, usually personally, because I am perceived to be part of a subgroup that is unduly, disproportionately benefiting from the public resource.
How sad.
I mean, you imagine, eh? Yeah, and so. And so I feel the hostility personally. I feel the hostility around the people that I have. In fact, I was telling someone that one of us was the best candidate in a certain recruitment process. And they told him frankly that we cannot give you this job. We just have to give it to somebody from another region.
Yes.
So we must confront this talk, this perception, very pervasive and very held by many people. You see, I was listening and arguing with one of the female MPs from this central region, and she was saying, you see, the president has taken some sections, subsections of people who are part of the central region traditional political organization called the Kingdom, and they have started facilitating them to break off. And I said, no, we at least have read two authors who are from this central region, who are supposed to be prominent people from this region, history professors, who have written about how those sub-regions became part of this big polity, this kingdom. It was this group which was powerful, went there, killed the king there of that subgroup, took over the princesses, and now said, you are part of us. So I was saying, you see, and this is not too long ago, this is history that we know, documented. I think, you see, when you come, because you are a powerful neighbor, you kill my grandfather, you forcefully take over my grandmother, it is called rape. And then you say she has become your queen now also. She's one of your concubines. And this land, I must behave, talk, and have everything be subservient to you. After 30, 70, 80, 100 years, I now have the capacity to liberate myself. Remember, I still remember the wounds that you inflicted on us when you were killing my grandfathers and taking over and raping my grandma. And I'm supposed to still be subservient and in love with you. Please. So we must also be honest about our history and these formations. Yes, there could be now advantage of a certain family or a certain ethnic subgroup because of the power they wield. And so the placements and the things, the advantages that they get. That could be true. But to lump all Barokore, because I told you sectarianism is also part of now religionism, to lump all of you, the Barokore, in one basket and say you are all like this, I think is very wrong. And for me, we must dialogue around this rhetoric of disadvantage to some subgroups by a dominant subgroup, perceived or real. And I think this is this is something we should not dismiss. You see, the problem is, in my view, one of the problems is we dismiss it every time it comes up. We must not be dismissive. However, for those who have positions of leadership, they must never be allowed to propagate this message or practice it. So if it is President Museveni practicing this, he must be opposed strongly and strenuously. If it is the Robert Chagulanyi propagating this, he must be. Finally, for me, I called this tour that was allowed a popcorn moment. Yeah, it was just a popcorn moment for the NUP. There is no way that the current power holders are going to allow any opposition person to go around the country talking. That is not going to happen. It has been for how many? 40 years. You are only confined to the headquarters and for a press conference. That's the only thing you are allowed to do. Even your meeting, you are not allowed. So that for you are going to go. 2, this thing that we are going to open offices, I never saw. I was out of the country. I never saw any of our local media showing an office that was being opened. So I kept saying, were there offices that were open? So the attention is not on offices. Otherwise, you can go quietly and open your office. But as a political player, your job is not to be quiet. Your job is to wrestle power from the one who has it. That's the job of the opposition. And the one who has power currently is not going to allow you to do that. No.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richard Baguma, and I've seen you have really opened us for us the floor as far as this topic is concerned. Let me come to you, Dr. Gerard. With all the security apparatus in Uganda and the LODU and many other things, we see, is it because of the big crowd we've been talking in the first hour that the real police is fearing, or it could there is something hidden as far as this suspension is concerned? Because others have been saying that as a result, people have saying with the declaration and the announcement of the bomb in Kampala and other parts of Uganda, others are saying it could be one of the reasons, but that one we shall not go into detail. Let's discuss about with the security in Uganda, police and up to the army. Isn't it enough for police to allow a political party like NUP and other political parties to go ahead and do their things democratically, to express their views, to open up offices like how, though Mr. Baguma says that he has not seen any? What is your take on that, Mr. Dr. Gerard?
First of all, I want to thank Mr. Baguma for contextualizing this debate. He brought it out so well. Going by I will not start from the point. Maybe let me first pick it up from where he was. I have read reports by the Equal Opportunities Commission that is supposed to streamline, to push for equity and equality in access to opportunities and so forth. And these reports of the commission are supposed to be tabled and debated in Parliament. Quite a number of them have pointed out the issues of imbalance, either in access to promotions, access to big jobs, imbalance in terms of poverty levels across the regions. And as you know, the North and the East rank very high in terms of poverty. Of course, I know it's a challenging thing that this imbalance cannot be solved in one day. But there are certain areas that you would expect. I recall President Museveni, when confronted some years back about the imbalance in the top command of the UPDF, he said it was due to historical factors and the fact that most of the people who led the NRA rebellion came from southwestern Uganda and some from central. And of course, after 20 years, I would believe him. Now, if it is 40 years, then the same situation is still persisting, I would also question and say if there are deliberate actions being made in a multi-ethnic society like Uganda to see that if you have a meeting of generals, maybe not 60% are from the same district. So it is something that as a country we cannot sweep under the carpet. And that is why maybe people are saying that practicing it is okay, but condemning it is punishable. So I also recall when WikiLeaks cables linked hacking, when Assange hacked the US websites, government websites, the Honorable Mike Mukula was quoted to have informed the American ambassador here that the sectarianism was a problem and it was going to cost the NRA. And he also saying that when he looked at President, I think they were asking him about what he thinks about succession. And that he said the president seems to think only about his son. And I recall very well after that when he fell into trouble with the Global Fund, many people said that probably those statements could have been responsible for that. But leaving that aside, I think we need to address this issue so that we are seen to be fair to many people in this country. Because just look, if you came to a ministry where the procurement committee is full of Bagisu, my tribe mates, and maybe Waguma is bidding, Garama is bidding, and we are bidding, and there is a Mugisu, and we the decision makers speak the same language. Most likely I will not look at the quality of the proposal. And this also fuels corruption. It fuels corruption. So that's my point. Now coming to issue of security and the NUP. Of course, in the strongest terms possible, I condemn certain statements. There are certain statements that were made that I could not mention them. For instance, I cannot say words like chitabani chagundi echigwagwagwa, you know. That is so abusive, you know, it is so abusive. And like he said, you don't choose parents, so why should I be abused because my father is so and so? So I believe that should be condemned, but also we address the causes of this. Now the letters, remember last week I was here and I said, in principle, I support security, handling issues of security matters, security institutions. But I also say that once security appears to be partisan, there is loss of trust of the public in whatever you say. For instance, we are having big concerts in Kololo, at Kololo Strip, attracting so many people. Yesterday, I saw a musician, someone called Munamasaka, who is launching today a song that supports the president. And he had a procession in congested parts of the city. I'm
getting information here, Mr. Doctor, that the president of Uganda is going to honor that function today.
Yes, I saw a very big procession with motorcycles in squeezed parts of the city. And the police were actually clapping, just happy laughing. So I said, if there are bomb threats, there are threats to social order. Why this? Why is this happening? So once we appear,
double standards.
Yes, double standards. Then we lose the trust of the public. And in governance, when there's no trust between the people and the state institutions, then it is very hard for you to govern. Even when there is a real serious threat, people may not take you very seriously. So that is what I submit.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gerard, for...
Sorry to you. I read somewhere that the people in Amisindwa died in landslide.
Oh yeah, you said sorry to me. I saw the message and the reply.
Yes. You guys seem to be buried. The land likes burying you on the right note.
Actually, that sub-counter is on the hills, the mountains. They have warned the people, but you see warning people without solutions, that a person will leave his home and just migrate.
Yeah, Mr. Banguma, I think our incident here, I think, was taken over by Libya, and most of the local media has been reporting much on Libya, forgetting Sudan, that in Uganda also we are facing the same problem. Yes. So really,
that one of Morocco is on the highest.
We send our regards to our people there at the mountains, and wherever government comes out to say, please get out of the mountain or get out of this place for safety, let us follow suit. But most of our people, especially from eastern Uganda, they tend not to go for fear. You know, there is a problem of land grabbing and other things. People think that wherever somebody leaves that place, his land, he will find there a house or a farm. So that's why people, so we need also to take away that fear from our people. But we go back to our topic of discussion. Before I come to you, Dr. Rugarama, I want again to remind our viewers out there that a service has already started at Canaan Land for the business community. Pastor Rosia Subjingo is waiting for you to make sure that that word is put into your head. How are you going to manage your business? And you cannot manage a business without trusting in the Lord. Without dedicating your business to God, there is nothing you can do. You can get that word from the advice from there. At the same time, the word of God. You will not go ahead empty-head without getting that word. Dr. Rugarama, Comrade Rugarama, the Pan-African, the man who has walked all over, who has read many books for Africa. You've read about sectarian, you've read about many things that can bring conflict or genocide in many countries, especially the 1994 Rwanda genocide. We have seen in many other countries. We have seen in Sudan, northern Sudan, and people are dying because of reckless talking. Do you think that police did a right thing to allow such meetings to take place in the country?
Thank you so much once again, Comrade Kajangu, to my brothers, Comrade Baguma and Comrade Dr. Wanzara. I thank you for your submissions on this particular subject. Comrade Kajangu, I will request that you allow me a little bit latitude.
Yeah, it's okay. With the democracy here. You allowed
into this. Thank you
now,
so
which
much.
democracy? when did we vote about around there?
Comrade Baguma will distract us. I thank you so much.
Yes.
What exactly did police do? Maybe for the benefit of the audience, since we didn't have time to read that particular document to our audience, and probably some of them have not come across it, there was the initial communication by police to NUP privately.
Yes.
And that initial communication to them was not in any material fact different from the communication that was read out to the public later, signed off by Major General Kasagazi. I have seen also in the public in some sections, and this is very worrying. There's a lawyers' platform, and I want to believe that the lawyers at least are supposed to be somewhere in the social and intellectual ladder of understanding. But some people, and this is the democracy that probably which you are talking about, some lawyers were even arguing that you look at who signed off some of these communications from police. It was not a Nanga, it was not the Ochora Martinez, but it was a Major General Kasagazi and some other guy also from Western Uganda.
Was it Nwajira or something?
Nwajira, something like that. For you can imagine that we bastardize and we localize the gravity of the issue to the extent that we start looking at the names that are signing off official documents. In that document, and I will relate it with what is tagged to have been spoken by our younger brother, Comrade Bob Wine. Bob Wine in Rowero, from what I have seen, referred to a group of people who came from wherever they came from without a spare underwear. I want to state that actually he was a bit lenient. They even didn't have the underwears to start with. So the spare underwears would be a plus. They didn't have the underwears. And he went ahead to say that it was Buganda. So that was a fact. In other words, he stated a fact. And that would have no problem anyway. He went ahead to say that it is Buganda who gave this leadership, NRA leadership, ushered the NRM into leadership. And therefore, it was the responsibility of Uganda and the Baganda to eject the same leadership out of the government.
Mr. Komrembe Rugaramazi, you go ahead. I want to give you information that the Buganda Kingdom yesterday issued a statement denying that. He said that this
they
statement... They
dissociated themselves.
They said that this statement was made by Kyagulanyi as a person and a principal, a president of National Unity Platform.
Thank you very much.
It is not a representative of Buganda as a region.
Which means, because you see, I was going ahead to bring it, to paint the picture correctly, what we are talking about, so that the audience out there does not look at us as if we are debating from lack of information. You see, I'm even glad that the kingdom has come out to say, to distance itself from the utterances of our young brother Kyagulanyi. He went ahead to say that this same group who came with nothing have now amassed all the wealth and they have dispossessed the Wananchi, especially the Waganda, of their land. Now, he went ahead also to allege that this same group of people are highly tribal, highly sectarian, and therefore they are the great grandfathers' generosity has been abused, and it is the responsibility of this generation of the Waganda to avenge for the abused generosity of the great grandfathers who welcomed the leadership, among other things. The letter from police, or the letters of communications from police, were to the effect that these words, which are laced with tribal and sectarian undertones, we are not going to be allowed. And I think probably Kasuga's, because see, police and the army now is punctuated with some of highly educated people who are also grounded in their ideology, patriotic and Pan-African. So sometimes when they are writing some of their letters, they color some of these letters with what actually has impacted their life, and their life has been impacted by patriotism and Pan-Africanism. So they also responded by saying that holding government and the people of Uganda at ransom and taking them for granted with a potential of setting the country backwards from the gains of democracy and peace that it has gained is not going to be tolerated.
Mr. Rugaramazi, you go ahead with your narration. I want to quote you some of the because in your remarks you said that we had no preview of this communication, but I want to quote what exactly the deputy IGP said in terms of when he was issuing this statement. He said that we have notes that in all areas where no mobilization activities have been carried out, there has been total breach of guidelines that's causing public disorder, loss of business, unnecessary jam, and vandalization, loss of lives, where Norman Mugisa died, and 10 others were injured in NUP convoy. So the letter goes and goes and goes and goes like that. Those are, and he was quoting the national police law when he was writing that.
Thank you so much for that. And I want to believe that, of course, now the kind of momentum that this debate has gained in the public, some of our people must have come across some of these documents. Now, allow me state also that in the quotas, in the public eye, there are some quotas of the people who are saying that police, and probably legally speaking, police is supposed to be notified that if you don't have authority to or give me to go out there, then you do not have the power to stop me from going out there. Now that, to me, that is a risk for disaster. Because now who is going to stop you in case you do not play by the rules? Because the rules are there. I may not have the authority, yes, granted, you are supposed to notify me, you have notified me. But again, the law is not caged. There must be, in case there is a lacuna somewhere, there has got to be where that lacuna can be cured. If it is not going to be cured, at least the government must, that is by registration, the government in power must find a way of bringing semblance of reasonableness and peace to the majority of the people. Therefore, at the point at which we are, we remind ourselves, historically speaking, if you go to America, America was largely built by slaves who were captured from the African continent. And that happened as a consequence of a certain group of people who took themselves to be superior than others. This is the segregation we are talking about, the discrimination we are talking about. Somebody to think that you are better than others to the extent that you will go and capture them and make them your chattel. The slave trade was a consequence of a certain group of people who thought they were better than others. Colonialism was as a consequence of a group of people who thought that they were better than others and therefore came and established their own rule. There was no element of democracy. The imperialism that we're experiencing now is as a consequence of a group of people through using their institutions of or the imperialistic institutions of World Bank and what have you, who think that they should keep the rest of other people, especially the South, into a situation of slavery of some kind. What I'm saying, therefore, is that when you hear what our brother Chaguranyi, in all that we have stated, what he was saying, in my opinion, is no message of hope to our people. Where we have come from, looking even at the Ugandan Constitution, 1995 Constitution as amended, the preamble brings out where Uganda has come from. I want to state from the onset that I am not saying that some of the issues which Chaguranyi is bringing out may not necessarily be there. There is no society which is free of some of the errors. This is just work in progress, continuous refinement. We are saying is the kind of rhetoric, and the majority of which is simply falsehood. Is it the kind of message that our society now needs going forward? And we are saying no. Certain things, and that's why I said that there is where I agree with my senior comrade Ofono Opondo, when he said that we have ability as NRM to counter some of these falsehoods. If you say land grabbing, and there is evidence that, for instance, the president bought his first land even before he became anything, he was still a student. If you say that, for instance, there is the jobs are taken by the Westerners. One time this argument came up. You were a journalist. You are going to look it up. There was this kind of talk. Even when I think, was it Aren Kajana, who was in URA or some before her? And there was what we call human resource audit. Yes, when they audited, they actually found out, and it was tabled in Parliament, they found out that the Baganda were more than any other tribe. Now, of course, somebody who is not, who is dishonest will come up and say, no, that's even not what I meant. What I meant is that the Jewish, I don't know what that means, the Jewish positions in URA are occupied by. Now, that kind of talk is what we are saying is not helpful to. Your first allegation has already been put aside by facts that this is not true. Now, from there, in 1963, our own forefathers and foremothers, if that is something that is correct that can be said, when forming the Organization of African Unity, which has now become OAU, they were fighting against discriminating amongst ourselves. The discrimination that this one is a Zimbabwean, this one is a Ugandan, this one, these are artificial boundaries that were bestowed upon us, and we should do away with them. We are now wrestling. The genocide in Rwanda you talked about was as a consequence of responsible talk on radio and differentiating ourselves on the basis of how our bodies are shaped. There is when you talk from the point of ignorance, you can be forgiven, as long as you keep your ignorance in your bedroom. But when you bring your ignorance to the general public and you want to parade it as truth, it must not be allowed. We have a situation in Burundi where we have had genocide in Rwanda, we have had presidents and a number of people being killed in Burundi, and stable governments in Burundi from that time up to now. We have had a situation as a consequence, of course, of discrimination, tribal talk. We still are experiencing trouble in Cameroon, the ambassadorial region, southern part, simply because one group speaks French, another one of Bia speaks French, North Cameroon, another one speaks English. On that basis of discrimination, there has been death, there has been deprivation of economic benefits in that part of the region. In Nigeria, we have Boko Haram, where the Muslims think that because they are Muslims, and they have got others who back them, they are better and they should impress it upon other societies within Nigeria. The Igbos, because of imperialism and colonialism, who think that they are better than the Fulani and other races, this is what we are fighting from African Union, from the Pan-African point of view. And we cannot allow such a situation to be percolating here in Uganda, where we have a government, NRM, which came into power and came with the 10-point program. 10-point program, one of which was discrimination must not be allowed. We had a situation pre-independence and immediately after independence where a Catholic was very difficult to find a Catholic marrying a Protestant. He knows these things. Must we allow such a situation? We have made gains whereby it is very difficult now. You will find some people here in Uganda, the byproduct of their union, kore, matrimony or otherwise, have created children who cannot easily identify if it was not for the patriotical way of arranging our society, who cannot easily identify themselves as Baganda, as Bagisu, as Banyankore, because their parents are from different places. When you begin the kind of talk, and the body shapes of our society are as a consequence of where you stay and the diet you feed yourselves on. If you are in a mountainous area, you are certainly going to be a little bit short and you will be massacred. If you are in a plain low-lying, you are going to be a little bit tall and you are...
Like our brother Richard Baguma.
Thank you. For him, you can easily tell. Now, what about me, who is a product of the two? So what will happen? where will I fall now? We have had experiences here on the African continent and away that some countries in Europe, for instance, was it Herzegovina and where people had to divide the entire country simply because these ones consider themselves different, others consider themselves different.
Bosnia
And Herzegovina. We have had a situation in America where discrimination, where the black community up to now are suffering under the heavy weight of the white supremacists who think that it is their duty to keep reminding people who are different from them by color. I want to tell you, comrade and our dear viewers, that in my opinion, there is one race, and it is called the human race. The rest is our own human manufacturing of differences, and that must be fought. Like Chama cha Mapinduzi, during the time of Mwalimu Kambarage Julius Nyerere, Kwame Nkrumah, during the time when he was the president of Ghana, and all those Abdul Gamar, to the extent that Abdul Gamar allowed that Kwame Nkrumah marries an Arab. Do you know what that means? The wife of Kwame Nkrumah was actually from Egypt. You look at the children. To the extent, therefore, that when we are having a debate, and I warned and I know for a fact that all our intelligence organs now, they are on high alert to see how we are debating this subject. I know for a fact. I want to conclude, therefore, by saying we have to be very mindful when we are afforded these platforms to tell our people that the days of discrimination, the days of sectarianism, the days we have seen what it has done in Kenya, the tribal clashes, and the loss of business and human beings, there is no way we are going to allow to engage in a debate where we could have stopped and we start talking serious business to push this country forward. We are talking about Africa Free Continental Free Trade Area. We are not talking about a Munyankore and a Muganda, a Mujisu and an Achori, and a Iteset and a Kumam. That kind of talk, in my opinion, forgive my language, is bogus.
Thank you very much, comrade, for your input. I think, Mr. Baguma, you well explained when you were starting debating this topic, and you gave an example of what is happening in the studios here. Somebody sends a message here. I don't know whether he had not heard you. He said, you Westerners look at the quorum in the studio.
Yeah.
Look at the quorum at the studio. Then you answer my question.
Yeah,
don't you think that it is true most of the parastatal bodies are headed by people from one side?
Can we even look at them?
This one is going to you.
They are there.
No, for me, there are two things that happen when you are discussing issues.
The good thing you answered the first question.
The first one, you have to look out for is not to be diverted. Because you see, when you are talking to people, they are hecklers. And hecklers are very clever.
Not debaters.
Yeah, they know how to diversify. By the way, even a heckler can be on the panel. It was possible that when Rugarama was talking, I could keep interrupting and derailing him. So it is possible. Even in the moderator.
And we have seen it.
Can do that, yes, we see. And for some people, that is what is supposed to be the good thing. That is a good show. With a lot of following and whatever. I'm not sure that we would like to lower ourselves to the level of hecklers. Now, this thing of parastatals, that can be scientifically established. And it's a question I also put. I said, let's look at the allegations and what. You talked about the parliamentary probe of the human resource ethnic versus ethnicism. And that report died. By the way, that talk was championed by somebody who is very senior in government. By the way, who heads an entity that is supposed to be checking some of those things. I don't know how how that performance is happening in that direction. Because at that time, the emotion and what shows what is inside that person. So, and I said something else, that sometimes a narrative, when it goes on and on, it can be taken as the truth. When a lie goes on and on, it can actually be taken as the truth, because the lie has been propagated for a long time. The third thing I said was that sometimes perceptions can be more powerful and override reality. So we must accept that these things happen. We must accept that this issue is there in the public, and that it can be discussed without, and I said, allowing it. It doesn't matter from where it emerges, without allowing it to degenerate into bloodshed. Because everyone, bloodshed. I say, please, shedding blood is not something to just discuss over a cup of coffee. It is real. Yes, it can happen. It is real. It can happen. And so when you see somebody who says, he look at you, the panel in the studio. I said we don't apply for going to studio. I am being consistently asked by one other television station to be on the panel. I have been reluctant. So if and this is a question, by the way, this question of us talking, it was asked to me by this Rugarama has a lot of faith in lawyers. I don't know why. They are human beings like any of us. By the way, if you see, many doctors, many journalists, many what have all become lawyers. And lawyers have also gone to sell Kaunga in Chisenyi. They are just like us. So this people come from us, have the sentiments. What Kajangu, I really want to emphasize two things. One, that I did not choose my parents. Neither I chose where I come from. By the way, historical accidents happen, and we are where we are. That's the first one. The second thing is that if somebody is disadvantaged by a subgroup, whether on religious, whether on economic, whether on color, race, whatever origin geographical, if they are discriminated by another subgroup, that must be condemned. It must be opposed strenuously and must be called out. But for anyone to seek to cover their weaknesses, to seek to cover their incompetencies through using the lens of sectarianism, I know I need to be winding up. We are supposed to be grinding. That cannot be allowed. When you say that people came without underwear, and you come from the ghetto, now what did you come with yourself? What did you own?
That's another question to
ask.
Yes.
But you are in a mansion. You fly first class with your entire family. You are in Canada right now, living in the highest, the best 5-star hotel in that country. But you came from the ghetto too. Which panties did you have? So do you want me to generate into panty talk? Underwear talk? No, thank you. I'm not going to go there. Thank you. Bwana Kajang.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Baguma. And my brother here, I think we need to use just 1 minute for each of us to make sure that we conclude on this topic. And do you see any crisis as you conclude? Just 1 minute, Dr. Gerard. Do you see any crisis? Do you see any crisis for stopping this? Because the party has said they will go ahead with their rallies. As you conclude.
As I conclude, myself, my family, I have children born to a Munyankole woman, and her maternal parents are Baganda from Musanji. So my children, I have three. So now, if I engage into these hostilities, I know that I would be disadvantaging my own family. However, there are issues, underlying issues, some causes of this in society that I urge the president and others to try to address. One of those critical things that are bringing these things are issues of land. Actually, Minister Mayanja is one person who has one of the hardest jobs in this country. I had a case in Semuto recently, I think I briefed Richard about it, where I had a land contention with someone, but he also had a huge land contention in Ngoma, At the end of the day, before I could claim my money, the man was gunned down. I lost issues of land. So if the evictions and most of them are propaganda, so those who want to grab power will ride on the weaknesses and try to use tribal tantrums to try to instigate. And you have heard those people saying they don't believe in elections anymore. So meaning that some words could be aimed at an uprising.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Comrade.
1 minute.
Just not even a minute here. Just use about 20 words to sum up.
Thank you. The current circumstances under which Uganda is moving dictate that we progress under correct ideology. The few mischiefs here and there notwithstanding, the ideological path that NRM has cultivated and the caliber occupying some of the offices is not going to allow this unguided kind of way of politicking. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Just if you can use 40 seconds, Mr. Baguma, to conclude on this topic and as we come to the close.
This country, our country, this continent, our continent, is going to outlive us. What do we contribute to it? But finally also, that if we don't shape up, we disintegrate. We must shape up.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Baguma, and our dear viewers out there. This is the dialogue that runs from every Saturday, 10 to 12 noon, and it has been a very wanting and very discussing topic which has been going on from today up to the next Saturday that we shall be. We can continue debating on our social media, and our colleagues we shall be giving you an answers. I still remind you that on 29th we shall be in Kololo, and right now as we talk, people are already gathered at Canaan Land for the business service that is going to take place. My name is Moses Kajangu. The next program that is coming is sports. We want to see whether Arsenal is going to defend what they did to the mighty team. I wish you the best and a happy weekend. My name is Moses Kajangu, and I wish you the best.
Must be an Arsenal fan.